really can't go wrong with a piece of competition, or just at home in those big cooling sessions. And finally, my budget choice. I would so happily use these, probably more so this year because the 356 is really But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts about these cubes if you have experience with that. And if this super one video was enough for you, you want even more information, say on the texture differences between 11 amps, the difference between this and the Air Duo, the 356 standard and light. I've got all those videos here as well because I am a Dan fanboy and I'm powerful.
Guys, and welcome back to Z3Cubing. This is my 2024 Rubik's Cube Collection. 1 decade ago, I started a tradition where I set all my cubes on display and tell you a little bit about each and every one of them. And this time around is no different, except this will probably be the final time that I ever talk about all 450 of these cubes in one place. So strap in, because we're about to get started with the top row. First up is the calendar cube, which I like to keep displayed along with all my other original puzzles on the top row. As you can see, it's a Rubik's Cube that can display any date of the year. This day is Saturday, December, actually it's the 23rd. Following that trend, this is a much newer calendar cube, which, as you can see, I also haven't updated in the last year. So let's go ahead and fix that. And finally, we have the impressive 4x4 calendar cube, which not only tells you the day of the week, the month, the day of the month, which needs fixing, but also the 4th-digit year, which is also wrong. Let's go ahead and find the 3 here. These last 2 sets of stickers, as well as most of the Cube video, are from thecube.com. They'll be linked in the description as always. Next, we're going to see my first of every puzzle, all the way up to an 8x8, starting with the mighty 1x1. Made out of paper, packing tape, Legos, and I think black nail polish, it was pretty mediocre quality, even for being made by an 8-year-old. This is the infamous Lane 2x2, which I thought was a Rubik's brand for years because I didn't know any better. And I mean, it turns okay for my first 2x2. And all the cubes from here on out to the 8x8 have these really nice tile stickers on them. A company that no longer exists called CubeSmith. I'd say they've held up pretty well over the last decade or so. This is my very first cube, a Rubik's brand from Walmart way back in 2010. It's one of the oldest style Rubik's brands that's easy to take apart. And I mean, it actually turns okay, especially considering probably thousands of solves that I've done. This is a Rubik's 4x4, and it turns awful. It's not supposed to be adjustable, but I somehow made it really loose just by taking it apart so many times. And yeah, it catches like crazy, and a lot of times it does this really annoying thing where the pieces pop out halfway. This is the biggest cube that Rubik's ever made, a 5x5. It's also strangely loose from taking it apart, and it turns surprisingly terrible. I mean, oh, there we go, we got one turn going. And it does this weird thing sometimes where the centers actually twist around. The very first 6x6 came out not long before I got into cubing, the BCube 6. It was so cool that everyone had to get one back then. The only problem is, the way a 6x6 works is by having a 7x7 with a hidden layer on the inside. Except back then, they didn't know how to keep that mirror layer into alignment, which is why it has this awful clicking mechanism, and sometimes it doesn't even work, so it just stops turning. The BCube 7 was a similar story, coming out at about the same time, except this one actually turned decent. As you can see, it has a slightly fluid shape, which basically makes it easier to design big cubes. I also accidentally got it in white. I don't really know why. It's kind of funny though, looking at just how yellow the plastic is getting, especially on the red side, which I always display. Look at the difference between those 2 shades of white. The BCube 8 is by far the newest of all those original puzzles. I got it in 2014, just after starting this channel. It turns okay, it does pop a lot. This is basically the end of BCubes being relevant, which is why you won't see a whole lot more of them throughout this video. We're about to fast forward about 10 years of BCube technology as we move on to my current main speed. Basically the puzzles that turn the best that I like to use in competition. First up is the GAN 251 Pro. Again, this is light years beyond anything that I showed you before. GAN is a really popular speed keeping company. It's called the 251, which is a 2x2 that's 51 millimeters. And uses it as magnet to snap into place, and Pro because it has some extra features. This is the Moyu RS Premium P5 Maglev All 4 DC. That's literally what it's called, and I think I already gave up on trying to explain what these means. Basically, it's a high-end speed cube that's a little bit blockier and more controlled than most of them nowadays, which fits my turning style really well. It's brand new, but I actually just used it to set my personal record average of 5 at the physical competition of 12.51 seconds. The YJ MGC 4x4 is just a really solid option for a speed cube, relatively cheap, and I don't really know anything else out there like that. The YJ MGC 5x5 is a pretty similar story. It came out over 3 years ago, but it's still dominating the market, whether or not you're on the budget. And the MGC 6x6 is pretty much the same deal. Back when this came out, I was used to make sure you could even get a magnetic 6x6 for just $25, let alone such a good one. The Moyu Aoku WRM is my most expensive